Hello, and thank you for joining me today for my presentation on recurring criminal justice issues. Before I get started, it is necessary to have an understanding of what ethics and ethical issues are. Ethics is the system or code of morals of a person, religion, group, or profession. Criminal justice professionals conduct their duties according to the oath they took and the department's code of conduct. The Code of Conduct outlines the expected and forbidden behaviors and actions of the employees, as well as the beliefs and ethics of the department. Ethical problems and corruption occur when employees do not follow the Code of Conduct or their oath. This presentation is going to take a look at 7 of the most common ethical issues that departments and criminal justice sees. These issues are wrongful pursuit of personal gains, favoritism, power abuses, flawed personal lives, deceitfulness, due process denials, and neglected duties. In addition, there will be a slide covering the most common of these issues. The presentation will conclude with 4 slides over these ethical issues as they apply to 4 different scenarios: officer-involved shootings, police brutality, racial profiling, and media relations. Wrongful pursuit of personal gains can occur at any level in the criminal justice system. This refers to the person abusing their position to gain items and rewards that they otherwise would not get. Some examples include accepting gratuities or bribes and receiving extra benefits or compensation for the position. If officers and departments make it a habit of accepting gratuities, it gives the appearance that they're playing favorites and giving a preference to that person or business. And this can create tension with the other community members, as the police and the department are supposed to remain unbiased and protect everyone equally. It looks like they are being paid off to give these people or these businesses more attention. Some examples of this include a citizen shows their thanks by giving an officer a gift card or cash, an officer using his position to get free coffee at the local gas station, local businesses offering free or reduced price lunches and meals for law enforcement when they eat there, or a citizen giving a judge money to dismiss a case in court or the prosecutor to not press charges. Favoritism refers to when an officer or a person uses their position to aid a person or business more than they do any other person or business. When an officer is biased against a person, business, or a type of person, they do not fulfill their duties to enforce laws and patrol like they would normally, and they allow more things to slip by. People and businesses should be treated and protected equally. And gratuities give the appearance of favoritism, and that's part of why they are so frowned upon. Some examples of this type of ethical issue include an officer is friends with a store owner, so he makes extra patrols in the area and visits to the store while he's on duty. A prosecutor is friends with the defendant, so they charge for a lesser crime or requested milder punishment than they would for someone else. The judge knows the defendant, so he dismisses the case, or they sentence the person to community service instead of jail time and or fines like they would for a normal citizen. An officer does not write women traffic tickets. An officer generates higher arrests and tickets in the poorer neighborhoods than the wealthier. And also a prosecutor charges non-white defendants with more severe crimes and citizens than white defendants. Abuses of power can occur in many different ways. Criminal justice professionals like judges and officers may use the position to gain personal benefits. Other times, the people may use their position to break the laws that they're supposed to be upholding. Unlawful arrest, intimidation, and harassment are a few of these power abuse examples. Also, these power abuses can lead to due process violations. If an off-duty officer, judge, or attorney uses their position to avoid traffic tickets or DUIs, that's a power abuse. Other examples include if a judge uses his position as a victim of a crime to have the bail increased for the defendant. An officer uses his authority to make traffic stops to initiate conversation with women drivers. An officer uses her position to receive discounts at the store or at the restaurant. And also if a supervisor condones an arrest because of who the person is, even though there wasn't enough probable cause to make the arrest lawfully in the first place. Members of the criminal justice field are expected to act in a manner that aligns with higher ethics and a code of conduct that a person may not expect from a citizen. They're to act this way not only on duty, but off duty as well. And even if the activities the person is partaking in are not illegal, they can still be frowned upon by the public for being morally questionable. To ensure that the criminal justice system operates smoothly and is successful, everyone involved must make ethical decisions. Examples of a flawed personal life include if an officer is known to drink heavily while at home, a judge is rumored to be having an affair, a prosecutor is known to yell at kids playing in front of his house, an officer used to belong to a street gang in high school, or a member of the system is known to be a heavy gambler. While all these things aren't necessarily illegal, they are very frowned upon by the public in general. Deceitfulness refers not only to lying and being untruthful about something, but also to being secretive. Criminal justice professionals may be tempted to cover up the misdeeds that they or their co-workers have committed. Not only does deceitfulness hurt the relationships with the public, but it could cause the officer to not be a credible witness anymore, and if that happens, all their previous cases can be brought back to trial and possibly thrown out, and they also may not be allowed to be a witness anymore either. Examples of deceitfulness include an off-duty police chief lies to officers about how he came to the scene of an accident, resulting in interference charges against the chief. An officer falsifies a report to make the charges apply to a defendant, or an officer claims they were on patrol when in reality they were napping in the car. Due process rights are guaranteed by the Constitution, and they have been defined by numerous court cases over the years. These rights ensure that a person is processed fairly and equally, and that they move through the criminal justice system smoothly. These rights cover all stages of the process, including investigations, booking, trial, incarceration, and post-release. Denials of due process rights occur when a person does not follow all the steps required, either purposely or accidentally. Examples of due process denials include officers do not read a suspect their Miranda rights before asking accusatory questions after arrest. The suspect does not get to go before the judge before a bail hearing for an excessive period of time. A search warrant is signed by a judge, but does not properly describe the location and items to be searched for, and the officer is aware of this, causing it to be an invalid warrant, but the officers decide to use it to search anyways. Or a defense lawyer does not do their duty to provide proper counsel to the defendant in court. As with any job, there are certain tasks and duties that a person is expected to complete and do while on the clock. For criminal justice professionals, some of these duties are even dictated by law, and they have to respond. When a person fails to complete their duties, they are neglecting their job or neglecting their duties. This can be intentional or unintentional and can happen in many different forms. If an officer fails to respond and provide assistance at the scene of an accident, this is a neglect of his duties. Also, if a judge does not spend time hearing the facts of the case and only reads the case brief and issues a decision without the input and information from the attorneys, that can also be a neglect of his duties. In addition, if a prosecutor doesn't look over the file sent from the police department and decides not to file charges in the case simply because they don't think it's a serious charge, that is another neglect of duty. Wrongful personal gains are probably the most common form of ethical issues faced by criminal justice. Officers are constantly being offered gifts and gratuities, and even though the system may have no intention of bribing, whenever they're trying to present the officer the gift, the officer still shouldn't accept any gifts. Things like drawings and thank you cards in general are acceptable, but larger items and cash and gift cards are not. And if any items like that are received by the department or the officer and they can't be returned, it's best to have those items donated. Ethical violations from wrongful personal gains are the largest issue hurting public perceptions right now and the relationship with police today. Now we're going to take a look at the first of 4 different situations facing departments now. The first situation is officer-involved shootings, and I was able to find 4 of these ethical issues that apply. Favoritism and bias, power abuses, due process denials, and neglect of duty. Officer-involved shootings can happen if an officer is biased against a type of person, so they make a snap judgment. The power abuses occur when officers are using their position to justify the shooting and not the situation. Officer-involved shootings can also cause due process denials because a shooting that results in death, it acts as all steps of the criminal justice system within that short period of time. And with neglected duties, officers are expected to treat all citizens equally. If a bias plays a role in the decision to shoot, then they have neglected their duties because they are also instructed to protect all citizens. The second situation is police brutality. Of this, again, 4 the issues I felt applied. And they include, again, favoritism and bias, power abuse, due process denial, and neglect of duties. Again, officers may treat a certain type of people harsher than others. With the power abuse, they justify their excessive force by claiming that the law gives them the authority to use it. Due process denial applies because suspects have the right to be free of excessive punishment. Excessive force can be considered a form of punishment. To help prevent this, officers should use a force continuum to determine what is acceptable in terms of force during the situation. The neglect of duties occurs because, again, officers are expected to protect all citizens and only use what force is necessary to stop the threat and control the suspect. If they are using excessive force and being brutal, then they are not upholding their oath. Third situation is racial profiling, and again, there are 4 ethical issues that I outlined: favoritism and bias, power abuses, flawed personal life, and neglecting duties. Favoritism and bias applies because officers should never use a person's race to solely build a profile on the subject or use their race to justify a stop, a ticket, arrest, or any other actions they take. Racial profiling applies to power abuses because officers may use race as an excuse to perform a stop or other action that they normally wouldn't have. A flawed personal life could come into play here as well if they have a history of racism or biasm in their past. Again, officers are neglecting their duties if they are racially profiling people because they are supposed to protect all citizens, not just the ones they like. The final situation deals with media relations, and more so specifically about officers speaking to the media that's not authorized to do so. I found 3 ethical issues that can arise from this: neglect of duties, power abuses, and wrongful personal gains. If an unauthorized officer speaks to the media, they could release information that jeopardizes the case, and if they do so, they are clearly neglecting their duties to protect the people. Power abuses may occur if they use the media to abuse their position. You could think of it as almost showboating. Also, wrongful personal gains apply because officers may use the media to gain personal attention and fame. If they are talking to reporters, then they get their 15 minutes of fame on TV. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for watching.